Welcome. I'm Diana Eck. I'm here in the broadcasting booth with my friend Jim Anderson, the Weld Professor of Chemistry, Atmospheric Sciences. And we're high above ringside here in the Tercentenary Theatre. Welcome to all of you who are out there in television land, in some of the many places where this is visible in Harvard this morning.
And
it is
we
really
have
great.
a beautiful day.
Beautiful day.
This is the 360th, so we've come full circle. It's Harvard's 375th. And Diana, we've been doing this for almost 10 years. Through rain and shine, and we've never seen a more beautiful
We've got shine this morning.
So.
Those of you who are watching this elsewhere, you really have the very, very best seats in the house. You can see this close up and wide angle from wherever you are. And I was telling Jim that I actually met some fans this morning, Jim, as I went into the Science Center to get coffee. There I was, and approached by people who watch us every year. I think we could have a few minutes of fame.
Well, that's a very, very loyal following, since this isn't our day job, right?
It's not our day job.
We were actually called in here to span the FAS from religion and humanities through to the sciences.
Yes.
And I think over these last 10 years, we've seen a huge change, because we used to be far apart. But now with your work on the pluralism that looks at world religions, and my focus on energy and climate, we find that our topics have come very close together, and it's a wonderful development here.
We're seeing, as we watch, two of the four processions that will enter into the Tercentenary Theatre are underway right now. And we have been watching the President's Procession. We saw Drew Faust come through, followed by some members of the corporation. The President's Procession processes through the open ranks of the seniors. And there you see them forming a processional aisle for the professors, the deans of the various schools, the dignitaries, the housemasters, the people who will be receiving honorary degrees today. You might recognize some of them as they come along. And the various members of the faculty, dressed in all of the distinctive regalia of the places from which they come.
And there's your Lowell House.
There
you,
is
of course,
Lowell
are
House.
co-master of Lowell House.
Yes, and that man in red is our very fine resident dean, Brett Flahinger, who is also a teacher in the history department.
And there's the toe of John Harvard, the statue, and you rub the left toe of that boot for good luck, and you can see many people have done that.
Have done this, yes.
And John Harvard, of course, came to the United States in 1637, became fascinated by the establishment of this new college in Cambridge in 1636. He only lived 18 months, died of tuberculosis, left half of his wealth in 400 volumes, and he was selected as the namesake. And I think his legacy is a proud thing, Diana.
Very strong legacy. And here you see the President's Procession actually moving into the platform that we are seated next to. We're at the right of the stage as you look at it. And these are some of the members of the corporation who are arriving. There had been, until very recently, only 6 corp members. Now there are 9. And we should comment on the quilt that is hanging behind the President's chair this morning. This was presented to her last night at the Honorary Degrees dinner from Her Excellency Ellen Sirleaf Johnson, who is the President of the Republic of Liberia. And there you see President Faust with Nan Cohane, one of the members of the corporation, in front of this quilt, which was presented with the words "from one woman president to another."
So the first woman president of a nation in Africa to the first woman president of Harvard University. It's a beautiful hanging.
It is beautiful, and you can see the cowrie shells that have been stitched into it. Very, very lovely. I'm delighted that it's hanging here this morning. This is really great.
Now, this all started out in 1642. It was the first commencement from Harvard. There were 9 students. And for many years it was, in fact, many decades, it was a wild affair that lasted a week with oratory, great drinking and presentations. In fact, the local sheriff will open the event this morning, the sheriff of Middlesex County, and that is a holdover from the days when it was necessary to quell the riots. Today, the excitement level is just as high, but it's manifest in a slightly different way.
We've just seen the completion of the first division, the President's Division. The very last person to be in that division is Fred Abernathy, very distinguished professor who is the caller, the closest thing to a real marshal who tries to keep order and get the faculty in line. And then the seniors fall in behind him.
And then Fred, of course, entertains the assembled mass in old Harvard Yard by reviewing history that's appropriate to the particular year. So this is...
One of the people you see under the dignitary sign there is Al Carnazale, who has been the chancellor of the University of California in Los Angeles, but who is receiving a Harvard medal today. I think that's why they're calling this group of people dignitaries. Also, Francis Ferguson is receiving a medal with him. That will be at the alumni ceremonies this afternoon.
Right. He's been very effective in joining science and societal objectives and has done a tremendous job. It's remarkable. We look out over this 30,000 member community that really comes together just once a year to celebrate this commencement exercise. It's also true that really over the last 10 years, we used to view these as separate schools, but now there's a far greater coherence working on world problems in religion and energy. And of course, your pluralism program began 20 years ago this year, 1991. And your wisdom in setting this up is remarkable, because your fundamental premise was it's not just about looking at other forms of diversity, but it's a proactive engagement of that has really become so critically important now.
Thank you for saying that. It is true that every society on earth these days is multi-religious in ways that are unprecedented, and multicultural and multilinguistic in some ways. So the challenges of living with difference and living in a creative way with difference are really all of our challenges. And many of the issues really do involve working quite across disciplines. I've been working with the new South Asia department, which is coming into being on July 1st, the first time we've had a Department of South Asian Studies here, that will take its place along with the very long histories of East Asia and Middle Eastern studies.
When we look at law at the Kennedy School, Business School, public health, medicine, Faculty of Arts and Sciences, and they are now, in many ways, joined in the University Center for what will be Energy and the Environment.
Yes.
250 faculty members, and I now look out and I recognize so many of these individuals because they're all working together within that context. And both you and I are a member of the Harvard Center for Energy and Environment.
Center for Energy and Environment.
Right.
And there have been days when we've looked out over this yard. Now we see the banners of the various schools, but there were these wonderful days when the banners that hung here were these green banners saying green is the new crimson. And the idea that a great university should dedicate itself not only to research on green environmental issues, but to living it out in our campus, and that's very important.
And we have 300,000 Harvard graduates that are now living in 143 countries, and it was really 1936, the 300th anniversary, that Harvard came out strongly on the international stage. FDR gave this famous presentation at that commencement, and that was really the launching pad for international engagement on Harvard's part, which of course was propagated considerably by the Second World War, but now it's really a formation of international communities that matter.
Yes. Well, and we will see when the Kennedy School of Government graduates are given their diplomas, they'll be hurling sort of globe-shaped beach balls into the air, a signal of the fact that they have a global concern. Now we're, oh, look at this sea of doctoral candidates. I mean, these are the ones in the red, the most vivid of those robes that are the red crimson robes of those receiving a PhD today. And we might say that in the festivities, they will be presented with their degrees first.
And those are the robes that really light up on a sunny day like this.
Yes.
Most of the other ones, it doesn't make that much difference, but they really explode in color.
Yeah. Here we see some of our colleagues on the faculty. There's Professor Noor Yalman in the background, a retired professor of anthropology and head of the government department. Here's some of our Lowell students gathering in front of the John Harvard statue, including a young woman, Kathleen Shute, who won the Women's Athletic Award, one of them last night at the athletic dinners. That's my house. These are our students.
Well, it's
very, very proud of all of them. We've got a lot of Sumas and Hoops prizes, and
but also all of your work, the International Council of Churches, and of course the Pluralism Program. You're also Wortham Professor of Law and Psychiatry in Society, and that breadth that you bring into the co-mastership of Lowell House is really critically important. And of course it was Lowell who established the house system in the late 20s, 1929, 30, 31, with a gift from Harkness, $10 million, that really built what are now the backbone of the undergraduate colleges.
you see Jacob Olupona from Nigeria coming up on the stage.
Eric Mazur.
Eric Mazur there. Peter Machinist in blue, a Yale graduate. And
Peter Persham.
you know the whole spectrum. Ellen Scarry.
Yeah, yeah.
And
it's interesting that the research component of Harvard in the sciences really started very, very slowly, and it was Eliot in the late 19th century that adopted the German model that infused teaching and research together. And that's really what built the great American universities. And it's interesting that Germany actually abandoned that in the 20th century, and the United States has really carried on. Now, I think it's also true that we have to look at what these graduates face when they walk out of here today, and we have to constantly drive to change the curriculum to prepare them for 5, 10, 20 years from now. And there's a massive effort to change, adapt, and connect the curriculum at Harvard through the sciences and the humanities, because people
it is a new world.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it's, of course, created in large measure because it took 7,000 generations to reach a population of 2 billion worldwide, and then in one human lifetime, we're going from 2 to 10 billion. And this builds a world community.
It's a huge challenge.
Yeah.
You're so right.
I mean, it defies human intuition how quickly things are changing.
All the empty chairs on the right here are the ones that will be filled in by the graduating seniors when they enter the Tercentenary Theatre. The chairs on the left of your screen are all of the classes that are in the various professional schools. And you're so right that this is the one day that that entity we call Harvard all comes together. And there is no other time, really, that Harvard as a university gathers, except this time during its commencement, and gathers in this place that is for this day and this season really called the Tercentenary Theatre, after the 300th anniversary of Harvard that took place here in 1636. And it's the only space big enough for the many thousands who are here today.
It's also true that the fact that everybody fits into this Tercentenary Theatre is an implicit statement about how tightly woven together the university actually is. If you consider the span of disciplines that are taking place here, the fact that we can all fit in here with the 7,217 graduates today is a very important statement about communication within the university.
We sort of fit. I mean, the parents are spread out quite a ways into the past. There are some of our Lowellians. Hi, everyone. And that
nice.
That gold sash is a new thing. That's the Asian commencement celebration for some of the Asian American students.
They know you're here.
They know that
Diana.
I'm here.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. These are great students. Bill Kraut, the curator of the Tillich Lectures, who's part of our senior common room, Shankar Ramaswamy, and a whole range of these wonderful students. The students, by the way, were all up with the bagpipe alert that took place at 6:15 this morning. I think some of them may not have gone to bed. Then a champagne breakfast at 6:30, followed by a procession to Harvard Yard to the Tercentenary Theatre for the senior chapel. And I should also say that our procession distinctively was led by a rickshaw bearing the 92-year-old member of our senior common room, Dr. Maurice Peckett.
We also look out and we see the span of people extending up the stairs of Widener Library, which frames this location for us today. And the Widener Library was named after a Harvard student that went down on the Titanic. And it really is the crown jewel of academic libraries. And it frames our scene here along with Memorial Church. And at 8 o'clock this morning, the students started out with services at Memorial Church.
They could barely pack into Memorial Church. I'm sure that it was many, many times over fire code there. In every available space, they were seated. And the acting minister in the church, Wendell Meyer, actually did something quite interesting by way of a lesson to them. He recited 10 lessons that the Reverend Peter J. Gomes had offered during his many years as Plummer Professor of Christian Morals and Pusey Minister in the Memorial Church. And Peter, of course, when we talk about the transitions of this year, the death of Peter Gomes has been enormously important because he has had such a sort of iconic and charismatic role in the university.
And his sense of humor was something we all remember. I met him 30 years ago at a fundraising for Harvard, and he stood up before all the donors and he said, if you think it's fun to donate to Harvard, just think about how much fun it is to receive it. And the place exploded. I mean, only Peter Gomes could pull that one off. It was very good. And this is just a typical creative, humorous injection that he's so famous for.
Here is the faculty and the dean sort of lining up on the stage, which is right below us here. Martha Minow, dean of the law school, Julio Frank of School of Public Health, Bill Graham from the Divinity School, and they're shaking hands with quite a number of members of the faculty in their regalia.
And there are really two governing bodies for Harvard: Board of Overseers, which serves as a external source of advice from many different walks of life: astronauts, historians, scientists, business people. And then there's the corporation, which is really responsible for the hands-on guidance of the university. Yes. And of course, that's gone through a major change this year with an expansion in its size, and I think that's a very welcome change.
They just announced yesterday the 3 new members of the Harvard Corporation, and then there still will be others to be announced. But one of the things all of you will notice when the degrees are conferred, each of the deans will say, Madam President and Fellows of Harvard College. That refers, the Fellows of Harvard College are the members of the corporation. And then the dean will say, Mr. President and members of the Board of Overseers. And the Mr. President is the current president of the Board of Overseers, and that is attorney Seth Waxman. And someone who's been very active, I think was former Solicitor General at one point. So the Board of Overseers, of course, is elected, whereas the corporation is appointed.
And I think the Board of Overseers actually was the first body formed, even though it doesn't have direct control. And it's this is the oldest corporation in the Western Hemisphere, the corporation that constitutes the foundation for Harvard University. And although it was formed in 1636, I have to say in the last 10 years, you and I have watched the initiation of military engagements.
Yes.
We've watched a financial collapse. We've watched the spread of Facebook and Twitter and the
Yes.
social networks that in many ways provided the information that certainly contributed to the huge changes taking place in the Middle East now. And we look out here at all this excitement, and it's an excitement about opportunity, and all people deserve an opportunity. And I think we are moving from a situation where only a few had that opportunity to potentially worldwide opportunity, and this is a very exciting.
It is very exciting. One of the honorands today is the person who is credited with launching the World Wide Web, and that now familiar www dot. We'll hear more about him. But I do have a confession to make this morning, which is that Tuesday, I sent my first tweet.
You did?
I sent a tweet. I have only received one tweet so far, because I don't think very many people, I don't know quite how to enter this, but I tweeted about the upcoming procession and the Phi Beta Kappa literary exercises, which took place in Sanders Theatre, and the speaker was the novelist Joyce Carol Oates. So that all fit within my 140 characters.
Well,
I don't think it was a very interesting tweet as tweets go. It was very straightforward, and I'll see what happens. I don't have any followers yet on Twitter.
I think it's in the 99th percentile of the finest way to start tweeting. That's my opinion.
But it is true. These students here have lived through so much that is exciting and cataclysmic in the world. Drew Faust began her baccalaureate speech by talking about the fact that they have been through earthquake and hurricane and oil spill and financial breakdown and Ponzi schemes and economic difficulties, and also through the Arab Spring and through the cataclysmic and very important earth-changing shifting of the terrain in the Middle East. This is an extraordinary moment for graduates. It really is. And
of course, the subject that always dominates this discussion, the uncertainty around jobs, but in fact, with such a rapidly changing world, it's a matter of adaptation and innovation that actually determines the long-term structure of job opportunities. And also, I think it's the responsibility of universities across this country to graduate people who understand what the issues are in terms of who they elect to the Senate and the House, because you can't blame politicians. You really have to come back to the fundamental knowledge of the electorate.
Absolutely, to the knowledge of the electorate and the critical importance of education. And one of the things that's very interesting is the percentage of students in this class. I can't give you the exact percentage, but a significant number who applied to Teach for America. And mind you, not all Harvard graduates who applied to Teach for America are even accepted. But the idea that teaching becomes a first and foremost next step after college is really, really significant.
And also at the university level, I mean, with a big research university such as Harvard and many others, there was a separation in many ways between research and teaching. But now, because the rate of change is so high, the integration of the teaching structure, the strategy, the tactics have become an intrinsic part of discussions and university objectives. It's a really remarkable change.
There you see President Drew Faust again. If you tuned in late, this is standing in front of the quilt that she received last night from Her Excellency the President of Liberia, Ellen Sirleaf Johnson, from one woman president to another. And this was a great delight, quilted by women in Liberia.
We should also mention that this commencement is a time when graduates, alums of Harvard come back 25th, 35th, 50th, 55th, 60th, up to the 75th, and probably moving to the 80th soon. The longevity of graduates is now extending this to cover the vastly greater number of interests and alum groups.
And of course, that's the other great procession that is still to fill in here, the procession of the alumni. The chief marshal of the 25th reunion class is the current Secretary of Education, Arne Duncan. I will not recognize him probably because that procession may not be televised, but he will certainly be very much in presence this afternoon in the alumni exercises. And then we should also note that in the 50th reunion class is last year's commencement speaker, the Chief Justice, or Justice David Souter of the U.S. Supreme Court, recently retired. And he is in the class of 1961 and here at his 50th reunion. Now we have with us our first interviewee, a graduate this morning. Congratulations. Van, I know Van Tran because he is a tutor in Lowell House and at the same time a PhD recipient this year. Congratulations, Van. What a wonderful thing to have you here. Are you close enough to the mic? Just move a little closer. That'd be great.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you, Jim, for having me here this morning.
That's a great pleasure. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got here?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you very well.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you got to Harvard?
Well, it has been a long journey. This is a very special moment because it's a culmination of a journey that began 12 years ago when I first came to this country. I got here 7 years ago after 5 years of working full-time and working full-time through undergraduate, working through my undergraduate education. I am here today finishing up my PhD in sociology and social policy, and it has been a wonderful journey.
Van, say a little bit about when you came from Vietnam to the United States.
Yes, as I said, I came 12 years ago from Vietnam after spending many years in various refugee camps in Thailand. At the time, I really wanted to get an education. I just didn't know how. I began at the community college and then transferred to a four-year college. By my senior year, I decided that I wanted to be a faculty member, and that's when I basically applied to graduate program. It was my fortune that Harvard came knocking on my door.
It was really great.
Well, that's a great start. So now tell us a little bit about what's coming next.
What's next? I have accepted a faculty position at Columbia, and in the meantime, I will also be spending a year or two on a fellowship at the University of Pennsylvania.
Congratulations.
So it's a bittersweet moment to be leaving Harvard after spending so much time at Lowell House in particular, where I feel a lot of affection for.
Van this afternoon will be receiving his diploma, not in Sanders Theatre with the other PhD students, but with three of our tutors in Lowell House who have elected to receive their doctoral diplomas in the house rather than in the graduate ceremonies. I think that speaks a lot for the dedication and role that that being a house tutor has played in your life?
Well, I think when I look back upon my Harvard experience, I will remember Lowell House very fondly because that's where I spent 6 of the 7 years here. And it's wonderful to be able to celebrate this collective moment with all of the students and colleagues who are here in the yard today. It's truly a remarkable place to be.
Would you say just a word about your academic work, at your thesis, and how you imagine going forward in teaching?
Yes. My research focuses broadly on the experience of immigrants and their children, a population that we call the second generation, how they're being incorporated into the American society, and how their incorporation might complicate our understandings of ethnic and racial inequality going forward. A lot of my work focuses on New York City in particular, because it's a place with a lot of immigration, and it has been historically a city that received many, many waves of immigration. My dissertation focuses on the places and the neighborhoods where the second generation grew up and how that changed over time. And then the second part of the dissertation focuses on how growing up in a poor neighborhood matter for social economic mobility among the second generation, and how people's understanding of how they should be living in their places and in the neighborhoods shapes the way they navigate the social environment in which they're embedded. So specifically, how they spend their time in the neighborhood and where they spend their time within a poor, disadvantaged neighborhood has implication for whether or not they're exposed to the more violent and the more difficult elements of their neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And going forward, I hope to continue this type of research to think very creatively and hopefully critically about the future of our country as we continue to incorporate and receive multiple ways of immigration going forward.
And what about your parents? The first generation, are they here?
The first generation are here and are very proud. They are down towards the steps of Widener Library, and they just came up from New York yesterday. It's wonderful to have them here and to share with them this moment.
Van, congratulations to you. This has been a
much.
wonderful and long journey, and it's a great privilege, a personal privilege for me that you're here this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good.
Well, this reminds us that for all of the paralysis in the political system now, the great and abiding strength of the United States is diversity, adjustment, acceptance, which of course is at the heart of the pluralism program.
It's been so interesting to know Van from this standpoint as well. I mean, this is a man, when he came to the United States, didn't really speak English. And so his first job was in a hardware store in New York at Wangle's Hardware, the corner of 3rd and 88th, I believe, and learned English by learning all the names of things in the hardware store, which is a start. And just a credit to the tremendous energy and creativity that many immigrants bring to the United States. One of the things that we will experience today is, and I had hoped, and maybe we still will have an interview with Tiffany Smalley, but who was the first Wampanoag Indian to receive a Harvard degree in over 300 years. And she comes from Martha's Vineyard. And there will also be a posthumous honorary degree given to another Wampanoag member of one of the very early Harvard classes over 300 years after his death. Joel, his name is.
The honorary degrees will be presented at a time when we are very limited in our ability to speak. As the program develops today, we're on just for the first 45 minutes. We're here, but we don't have very much to say. So the honorary degree aspect of this commencement, I find, along with the oratories that are delivered in English and Latin, to be really the highlights that makes the idiosyncratic aspect of this commencement really come alive. And these honorary degree recipients, of course, Ben Franklin was the first, George Washington, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, John Quincy Adams, and Andrew Jackson. And John Quincy Adams commented when Harvard gave Andrew Jackson an honorary degree, that it was an insult to the university to give an honorary degree to somebody who couldn't complete a grammatically correct sentence or spell a word the same way twice. And so Andrew Jackson shot back saying that it was only a small mind that could only figure out one way to spell a word. And it reminds us that some things never change.
Well, and this is why they're honorary degrees, you know, for people who might not have received the regular degree. But it is true that two of the honorands today are people who have had a long association with Harvard. One Nobel laureate who is a professor, a long-time and cherished member of the faculty, and another former member of the Harvard Corporation. So it reminds us that the honorary degrees also serve to honor people who have been tireless contributors to the community that is Harvard University.
And the names span a tremendous range. Aaron Copland, just after John Kennedy, Saul Bellow, Beverly Sills, Arthur Fiedler, and of course more recently Yo-Yo Ma. If you look across the spectrum of contributions to the American intellectual and arts structure, it's remarkable how important these honorary degree recipients have been to the evolution and development of the country.
You'll see former Chief Justice Margaret Marshall, who just was seen in the television viewing, and again we're back on stage here with the deans of the various schools of Harvard University. Many of the undergraduates have now taken their seat in their particular section of the Tercentenary Theatre and are getting ready for the big moment. I think it's almost full, with the exception of that very large group of empty seats that are off to the left. I'm not sure who is supposed to fill those in, but I think more members of the graduates. The faculty section here under this great tent that was created for the Harvard 350th in 1986. But this faculty section is very, very full. It's a very big showing of the faculty this morning. And I will say that yesterday at the baccalaureate, to go back to your theme of Harvard's new diversity, was really extraordinary. There you see in the middle Bernie Steinberg, who will offer a prayer at the beginning of these ceremonies. And yesterday there were recitations from Confucius in Chinese and English, from the Bhagavad Gita in Sanskrit and English, from the Holy Quran in Arabic and English, and from Hebrew and Greek scriptures as well, representing something of the spectrum of the graduating senior class, which is religiously diverse and includes people of all religious faiths and none, actually.
And we have a new sheriff of Middlesex County. Unfortunately, we lost Jim DiPaolo, who was probably as theatrical as any sheriff of Middlesex County could possibly have been, and he's replaced by Peter Katosian, who will take over those duties, and this will be his first year of opening the Harvard Commencement. And as we look out, it's the Harvard College graduates, of which there are 1,556 that occupy center stage in Tercentenary Theatre here. They're dressed in black robes, and it was really Harvard College that was the foundation for everything that we see here, starting in 1636, only 16 years after the Mayflower landed.
It's
just
amazing.
Remarkable.
And what an incredible vision to think that among the very first things people felt was significant was to preserve learning and establish it for posterity here. That this was part of the mission. There you see Professor Richard Thomas, who actually is the chair of the committee that chooses the Latin and English addresses for today. And those are done by competition. when people ask who's speaking at Harvard Commencement, we usually say, well, we have 3 students who are speaking at Harvard Commencement before this huge crowd today. And there will be a Latin disquisition, an English salutatory address, one given by an undergraduate and one by one of the graduates of one of the graduate schools.
And I think it's fair to say that that is the most demanding performance that anybody executes today, because they stand up in front of 35,000 people, no teleprompter or anything, and they perform. And this is a remarkable feat. Frankly, I prefer giving the Latin one because most people don't know when you make a mistake. In English, it's pretty embarrassing.
Right.
But we've never seen anything other than excellence.
Absolute excellence. And I know students who competed this year, they all took it very, very seriously. But the other thing we should remember, I mentioned Joyce Carol Oates, who spoke at the Phi Beta Kappa literary exercises, but there are a host of other speakers. This afternoon, Her Excellency Ellen Sirleaf Johnson will address the assembled Harvard Alumni Association in the afternoon address, along with Drew Faust. There's Jackie O'Neill, the Chief Marshal of the university. But also, there was Amy Poehler, who addressed Class Day yesterday. Class Day at the Kennedy School was Dr. Paul Farmer, and at the law school was Alec Baldwin, the actor. So there are a range of people who end up as speakers across this vast assemblage that is Harvard Commencement. We're closing in on the moment at which there will be the call to order. We'll see Jackie O'Neill and also the last year of our provost, Steve Hyman, who has a very distinctive role at the center of this commencement. But it is true, once the actual ceremonies begin, we don't have any unscripted remarks. There is a small book that both Jim and I have here called the Order for the Conferring, the Form for the Conferring of Degrees. And this is a little bit like the Harvard University Book of Common Prayer or something like this. It is a set form that is for both the president and for the deans in the conferring of Harvard degrees. And we will see this used by Jackie O'Neill, you just saw, our marshal. There's Seth Waxman, the Mr. President of the Board of Overseers, and of course, President Drew Faust.
And that book hasn't changed since we began working together, except the date on the front.
The date on the front. Well, the deans tinker a little bit with what they want said about their school, but once it's in this book, they don't say anything else.
And actually, that's a piece of performance, too. Some of them prefer to read it, others memorize it, and I think there's a lot of friendly rivalry over who reads it and who steps up and does it by memory. Well, it's a gorgeous day, isn't it?
It is truly an academic festival, and it is one that includes processions to the yard and processions back from this Tercentenary Theatre to the various schools to which the students repair in order to receive their diplomas. We should remind those of you who are listening, though, that the moment at which the degree is conferred is the moment at which it is spoken by the president of the university. This is a degree granted by a speech act, which is not just the getting of the diploma, that is extra, and that occurs later in the day in the various schools and in the Harvard houses.
And of course the alternative to this, Diane, is having 7,217 people walk across the stage.
That would be very difficult.
Would you vote for that
I
structure?
would not vote for that. This is great. The Speech Act is a time-honored way of conferring the degree. And there you see Evelyn Hammond's,
Barbara
Gross, the outgoing head of the Radcliffe Institute, and Steve Hyman in the front row here.
Michael Smith, the Dean of FAS. Cherry Murray, Dean of the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences.
in that rather Columbia-looking gray robe, that is Alan Brandt, the Dean of the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences.
So the bells are chiming, which reminds us that 14 bell towers across Cambridge break into a loud and coordinated ringing at this event. And one of them is at Lowell House.
One of them are the 17 Russian bells of Lowell House. Now, Jackie O'Neill has been informed by Fred Abernathy that everything is in order.
Mr. Sheriff, pray, give us order.
The High Sheriff of Middlesex County now declares that the meeting will be in order.
Please rise for the national anthem. The chaplain of the day will open the exercises with a prayer.
In memoriam, James Paola and Peter J. Gomes. For over a decade, James D. Paola, Sheriff of Middlesex County, rode a National Guard mount to Harvard Yard on Commencement Day. Combining dignity and irony, he inaugurated the commencement ceremony, declaring with a booming voice and a pounding staff, "The meeting will be in order." We shall miss his dramatic presence. We mourn his untimely passing. For more than 4 decades, the Reverend Peter J. Gomes, Plummer Professor of Christian Morals and Pusey Minister in the Memorial Church, closed the commencement ceremony with his blessing, an eloquent, moving, and relevant benediction. Indeed, Peter Gomes, my friend Peter, was a ubiquitous spiritual force on this campus. His preaching, teaching, mentorship, friendship, and countless deeds of compassion have inspired thousands. May his memory be a blessing. El Olam, God of the world, bless all who are assembled at this historic place during turbulent times. Give us the mind and heart to discern hopeful possibilities in the face of grave uncertainties. For by your light we shall see light. We thank you for bringing us to this auspicious moment of transition in the shared life of our community and in the personal lives of our graduates. May it be your will, source of life, that the coming years will be for these your children years of abundant prosperity, years of achievement, years of learning and delight, years of discovery and adventure, years of hope. To you, the graduates of 2011, may the precious friendships of this hour endure, grow, and flourish over time. May you discover meaning in your vocation, even inspiration in your life work. God give you the freedom to play and to laugh. God give you the courage to love. May your humor keep you honest and give you perspective. May your compassion deepen and flow as a wellspring of life. May God grant you patience with yourselves and with others to transform your knowledge into wisdom, your wisdom into service, and your service into a just and flourishing world. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Blessed are you, Lord our God, sovereign of the universe, for giving us life, for sustaining us, and for enabling us to reach this day. Amen.
Latin salutatory. Rota Fortunae Harvardiana, candidate for the degree of Bachelor of Arts, Charles C. Bridge.
Praeses Faust, Decani, Professoresque Sapientissimi, Familiae, Amici, et Hospites Honoratissimi, et tandem conduscipuli carissimi, salvete omnes. Mihi voluptas magna, atqua honor altus est, huius ceremoniae incipiendae in hoc theatro Augusto Trecentensimo. Nec solum conventum ultimum classis nostrae, anni 2 millensimi et 11, sed etiam conventum trecentensimum et sexagensimum huius universitatis hodie celebramus. Hoc cum animad vertissem gaudebam, propter sensum singularem numeri trecenti et sexaginta. Ne mihi quidem, literarum antiquarum discipulo, latere potes orbem omnem in partes trecentas et sexaginta esse devisum. Venit in mentem orbis quidam praecipuus, qui vitas nostras hos quatuor annos rexit, rota scilicet fortunae Harvardiana. temporibus antiquis rota signum erat levis mobilisque naturae fatorum, circuitus vel unus cladem felicissimis affere atque miseros extollere potest. Nos Harvardiani quoque mutationes fati per multas passi sumus. Statim in anno primo reperimus custodem mensae Annenbergianae. Domnam. Vel beneficium magnum, vel iram inexpiabilem offerre posse, velut fortuno volebat. Iram certe si tesserarum nostrarum oblitieramus. Prope anni illius finem, circuitus alius rotae fortunae decrevit domum ad quam delegati eramus. Plurimi laetabantur, praesertim hi beatissimi, qui in locum valde amoenum, domum dico Dunsteriensem, sunt recepti. Mox autem rota fortunae nos in ima desperationis saeper mercisse videbatur. Horae somno deditae numerique nostri in chimica organica inferiusque ceciderunt. Universitas ipsa in malo rotae latere se invenit. Sicut mercatus corruerunt, ita corruit dotatio nostra, olim amplissima, et nova aetas severitatis aderat. Heu miser indigne ientaculum calidum ademptum nobis. Haud aliter aliatores in spectaculo illo televisifico rota fortunae subito perditi fiunt. Hoc tamen anno rota in cursu secundo rursus volvit, atque fortunae nostrae meliores factae sunt. Examinibus thesibusque perfectis, occupationibus speremus inventis, et ialensibus quater victis. Advenimus ad tempus illud fortunatissimum, ver seniorum, et nunc hanc universitatem gratissimam deserere paramus. Iter rotundum in rota fortunae Harvardiana confecimus, et hodie ubi incepimus iterum pervenimus, eodem studio eademque materia infinita, quae in congregationem primam in hoc ipso theatro atulimus. Ne praetereamus tamen dictum api Claudi Caeci, faber est suae quisque fortunae, etsi fata impedimenta quaedam nobis conjecerunt, ea omnia superavimus, adiutorio condiscipulorum familiarumque, doctrina professorum praeclarorum, et proprio labore constantiaque. Rota fortunae per summa fati imaque unum quemque nostrum fera continuabit, sed semper recordamini, commutationes quas in vita nos ipsi faciemus, nostro labore, et studio, et incitatione esse decenendas. Progredimini igitur, collegae optimi, et efficite felicitatem vestram. At nunc, amici, avete atque valete.
Beautifully done. In 1642, most of what went on, oratories in Latin, and Greek, and Hebrew, and then there were contests, shooting contests, writing contests. This harks us back.
Senior English Address. Lessons learned from a three-legged chair. Candidate for the degree of Bachelor of Arts, Kathleen J. Colson.
As the oldest university in the country, Harvard has a long history of tradition. During my last year here, I made it my mission to learn about as many of those traditions as possible. In this process, I chanced upon one that I don't entirely understand, that of the three-legged chair that President Faust sits on today. Apparently, this chair was purchased by former Harvard president Edward Holyoake and has been used during convocations and commencements ever since. Though the story is intriguing, I had to wonder, who really needs a three-legged chair? How could 3 legs possibly be better than 4? And what does this say about Harvard? The more I thought about the 3 legs that support that chair, the more I thought about what has supported me during my time at Harvard. As I reflect on the entirety of my liberal arts education, I realize that the foundational knowledge I have acquired is not exactly what I expected it to be. As a chemistry concentrator, I thought that reaction mechanisms or the periodic table might be my foundation. But while I'm so thankful to have learned from the dedicated chemistry professors at Harvard, this single subject is not what supports me. Instead, it's the learning across disciplines that has given my classmates and me a framework to think about the world. Chemistry is not just chemistry. It's one of the many subjects where women have traditionally been underrepresented, as I learned in the Women and Gender Studies department. It's also a mystical science that English literature has sought to depict for generations, dating back to the poison dispensing apothecary of Romeo and Juliet. By understanding the ways that my primary concentration relates to other disciplines, I can try to make sense of the world through a more complete point of view. This liberal arts education makes up part of the foundation that we will leave Harvard with, one of the legs of that special chair. As I leave Harvard, I am also thankful for the classmates who have stood up for their beliefs and challenged me to do the same. I remember way back to opening days, to the community conversations where we were expected to discuss difficult issues of bioethics, race, and class. Personally, I was scared out of my mind, and in retrospect, I'm sure that many of my classmates experienced those same feelings of fear. We were unsure of how to express ourselves, unsure of how our beliefs might then impact our personal relationships. But then, slowly, over the past 4 years, my peers taught me to be less afraid, to share the opinions and beliefs that I hold dear, and to invite others to be open and honest with me. Now, when I see something like the inequalities in our education system, I want to talk about them. To hear from others and to seek out solutions. When talk turns to religion and spirituality, I am excited to share my beliefs and to learn from those of others. Because of the support of students around me, I've learned to be proud of my classmates' beliefs and accomplishments, and to value my own contributions as a small part of a potential solution. After all, this sharing of ideas is the only way real change can happen, and it composes the second leg of that traditional chair. I have also come to depend on the community that surrounds Harvard. During my sophomore year, I worked for a summer camp through the Phillips Brooks House Association. Through this program, I had the opportunity to get to know a group of high school students who had recently moved here to Boston from different countries all over the world. At one point during the summer, one student's family invited the staff over for dinner, wanting to share with us both their food and their stories. They told of leaving their home country of Iraq as refugees, coming to the United States where, despite their graduate level degrees, they found it impossible to find work due to both the language barrier and the prejudice that they encountered here. Their willingness to share and be vulnerable reminded me of the kind of familial love that's so easy to forget about on a college campus. I am so glad that Harvard is located in the midst of such a great community, and I hope that future students will continue to explore the areas around them and get to know the issues that face the community they live in. So then, we have three legs of the chair that President Faust is sitting on today, and three legs of academics and peers and community. But what happened to that fourth leg, and why was it left out? Perhaps that fourth leg was left out strategically to remind us that our learning experiences are not over and that we must continue to seek out opportunities to build our support systems in years to come. Hopefully, as we think back on all of Harvard's many traditions, that missing leg will serve as a reminder to take the lessons we learned here forward. Graduation may be today, but the search for the missing leg can go on as long as we live.
Well, it's one thing to create a spectacular presentation, and it's another one to drive home the point with so much color and pizzazz. That was very well done. Yeah.
And that 1770 chair, I think they must keep it in pretty good repair for all of these decades and centuries.
Graduate English Address. Declaration of Independence. 2.0. Candidate for the degree of Master in Public Administration, Adam Price.
In Harvard Yard in 1775, George Washington's army was housed over there in Hollis Hall. Racked by fear and exhaustion, sustained only by coffee, canteen food, and the promise of future happiness. It sounds a lot like finals week. Lined up on the opposite banks of the Charles River were hundreds of my Welsh ancestors, the Royal Welsh Fusiliers, fighting for the British Army against the American Revolution. Wait for it. So I guess I'm here to apologize, really. You seem to have made a real success of this independence thing. Well done, and thanks. Yeah, it's good. And thanks for leaving us Canada. But the people I think about most today are those of my Welsh ancestors that were on this side of the river, fighting for the revolution, who showed an independence of mind, whose spirit I want to invoke today. 14 of the signers of the Declaration of Independence were Welsh, who had found here in America, as I have at Harvard, a space to think and chart their own course, who were inspired by the dream of freedom, first forged here, that's still troubling tyrants today from Tripoli to Damascus. Unlike the hidebound British, who never broke ranks, the American revolutionaries knew the value of thinking for themselves and fighting for each other. They struck out on their own, yet they built something new together. Today, we're bathed in a sea of black and crimson. Yet in this university of knowledge lies a diversity of understanding in the 133 countries represented here today. And from the proud peacock blue of the Kennedy School to the canary yellow of design, from the deep red of divinity to the purple hue of law. It's our differences that give us our distinction. Well, there are 9 graduate schools that can do you all. We'd be here all day, but we love you too. But we live in a world of creeping homogenization, a blue planet that's becoming small and grey, where a language is set to die every 14 days, where globalization has put a Starbucks on every street corner, where Google has made the transfer of knowledge as easy as the click of a mouse. How else would we have finished our dissertations on time? Are we all beginning to speak, to see, to sound the same, and even think alike? According to one recent study, half of all college students showed no improvement in their capacity for independent thinking by the end of their sophomore year, even while sober. It's nothing new. 50 years ago, Yale psychologist Stanley Milgram showed us how dangerous, how pervasive conformity could be. 65% of people in his famous experiment were prepared to inflict an electric shock simply when asked to do so. But then what else do you do for entertainment in New Haven on a Tuesday night? At its best, the university is an incubator of independent inquiry, a cacophony of voices, opinions, arguments, a living debate that reshapes us as we shape it. But here's the irony, that to graduate, we must first master the established theories. So though we're meant to stand here on the shoulders of giants, it can sometimes feel as if that body of accumulated learning, all the tried and tested frameworks and formulas are weighing down upon us, crushing our creativity and threatening to sink us if we're not careful. In a world where the deepest problems defy easy resolution, surely the greatest risk is not taking risks at all. So, will we have the courage to mount our own quiet revolution? Generations ago, there was an army of people drawn here from many lands that rejected the status quo, that turned their world upside down. So let's salute them, the dissenters, the mavericks and heretics, pioneers and prime movers, who know that without our willing to be wrong, we can never be right. That it's only by questioning what is that we can begin to imagine what might be. That it's in our originality that we will find humanity's greatest hope. The world needs less of the same. It needs us to work together and think for ourselves. It needs the commonwealth of us and the republic of you. So together, let's make today our Independence Day, and in our liberty, strive to serve the common good.
That was a very effective address. It spoke really to the whole community here.
We think it can't get any better, and every year it seems it does.
Relatively new addition to Harvard Commencement, where the music is as traditional year to year as
These
everything
addresses
else.
by selected candidates for ordinary degrees being ended, the deans of the several departments will now present to the president and fellows and to the board of overseers, in the favoring presence of the friends assembled here, the candidates on whom the various academic distinctions are, with due ceremony, to be conferred. The Dean of the Faculty of Arts and Sciences.
Dean Michael Smith.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, members of the overseers. In the name of the Faculty of Arts and Sciences and by its authority, I have the honor to report on 4 groups of candidates who will be presented to you today. First, the Dean of the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences will present candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, and then the degrees of Master of Arts, of Science, and of Forest Science. Next, the Dean of the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences will present candidates for the degrees of Masters of Science and of Engineering. Third, the Dean of Continuing Education and University Extension will present candidates for the degrees of Associate in Arts, Bachelor of Liberal Arts, and Master of Liberal Arts in Extension Studies. Finally, near the close of these exercises, the seniors in Harvard College who are candidates for the first degree in arts or in science will stand proudly before you. The candidates in each of these groups have, by vote of the faculty, fulfilled the requirements for the degrees for which they are severally recommended. I salute all these men and women, trusting that they will forever wisely enjoy the freedoms that their education has given to them, while bearing the responsibilities that their learning demands of them. Each of these groups will now be introduced to you by the deans responsible for the programs in which they have been enrolled.
Candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy will rise. The Dean of the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, and members of the Board of Overseers, as Dean of the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, I have the honor to present to you these scholars, all of whom have devoted themselves to the rigorous pursuit of advanced study, have attained high distinction, and have made original contributions to knowledge in their several fields of scholarship.
By virtue of authority delegated to me and recognizing your high academic achievements, I confer on you, men and women of learning, the degree of Doctor of Philosophy. Welcome you to the ancient and universal company of scholars, and entrust to you the free inquiry of future generations. Congratulations.
494 new doctorates today.
And the PhDs are really the highest degree that this university has to offer. Many of these students have been working for 5, 6 years, perhaps even longer, toward this Doctor of Philosophy.
Candidates from the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences for the degree of Master of Arts and Master of Science will rise. The Dean of the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, members of the Board of Overseers, as Dean of the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, I have the honor to present to you these candidates, all of whom have completed a commendable step of advanced study in their respective disciplines.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Master of Arts or Master of Science, and certify that you have surmounted with distinction the first stage of graduate study. Congratulations.
410 recipients of the master's degree.
Many of them on their way to
Candidates
a PhD.
from the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences for the degrees of Master of Science and Master of Engineering will rise. the Dean of the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences.
Madam President, fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President and overseers. As Dean of the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences, I have the honor to present to you these women and men who have completed the first step of advanced study in engineering and applied sciences.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Master of Science or Master of Engineering, and certify that you have surmounted with distinction the first stage of graduate study. Congratulations.
This is also your school, Jim,
Yes.
in part.
Candidates for the degrees of Associate in Arts, Bachelor of Liberal Arts, and Master of Liberal Arts in Extension Studies will rise. The Dean of Continuing Education and University Extension.
This is Dean Michael Schnagel.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, and members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean of Continuing Education and University Extension, I have the honor to present to you these students, candidates for the degrees of Associate in Arts, Bachelor of Liberal Arts, and Master of Liberal Arts in Extension Studies.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Associate in Arts, Bachelor of Liberal Arts, or Master of Liberal Arts in Extension Studies, and admit you to the fellowship of educated women and men. Congratulations.
Many of these students have spent a decade going slowly through extension. Here we have the St. Martin's Psalm 78 that has been sung at Harvard Commencement, at Harvard Baccalaureates, and meetings of the Harvard Alumni Association, even for many, many decades.
The Dean of the Faculty of Medicine.
This is Dean Jeffrey Flyer.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, members of the Board of Overseers. In the name of the Faculty of Medicine and by its authority, I have the honor to report today that two groups of candidates in the fields of medicine and dental medicine have fulfilled the requirements of the faculty for the degrees for which they are recommended. They will be introduced to you by the deans responsible for the programs in which they are enrolled.
Candidates for the degrees of Doctor of Dental Medicine, Doctor of Medical Sciences, and Master of Medical Sciences will rise. The Dean of the School of Dental Medicine.
This is Dean Bruce Donoff.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean of the School of Dental Medicine, I have the honor to present to you these women and men, each of whom has devoted 4 years to the study of dental medicine, or at least 3 years to postdoctoral studies aimed at improving health and the quality of life.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Doctor of Dental Medicine, Doctor of Medical Sciences, or Master of Medical Sciences, and declare that you are qualified for practice and research in a demanding branch of medicine. Congratulations.
Candidates for the degrees of Doctor of Medicine and Master of Medical Science will rise. The Dean for Medical Education.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, and members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean for Medical Education, I have the honor to present to you these men and women, each of whom has worked hard and well to prepare for a life of learning and service in medicine.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Doctor of Medicine or Master of Medical Science, and declare that as physicians you are ready to engage in an honorable and merciful calling. Congratulations.
And they seem to be holding and waving stethoscopes. Is that what they are?
That's right, yellow ones.
Yellow stethoscopes. They stand
Candidates for the degree of Master of Theological Studies, Master of Divinity, Master of Theology, or Doctor of Theology will rise. The Dean of the Faculty of Divinity.
This is Dean William Graham, an Islam scholar, really.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean of the Faculty of Divinity, I have the honor to present to you these women and men, each of whom has devoted 2, 3, or more, sometimes many more years to theological and religious studies in preparation for careers as leaders in scholarship and in vocations of service.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Master of Theological Studies, Master of Divinity, Master of Theology, or Doctor of Theology, and declare that you are well prepared to foster the health and vitality of communities of faith, to further scholarship in religious studies, and to help in shaping the shared values of the broader society. Congratulations.
And this is a part of the university you're very closely associated with.
I know this part of the university. My appointment's in FAS, but yes. I also go
Candidates
to the divinity
for
faculty.
the degrees of Doctor of Law, Master of Laws, and Doctor of Juridical Science will rise.
As you might imagine, this is the group closest to us right here,
The
and quite a
Dean
large
of the
group.
Faculty of Law.
Martha Minow, her second year as Dean of the Law School. Very popular, as you can tell, with her students.
Fellows of Harvard College,
Mr. President, and members of the Board of Overseers. Okay. As Dean of the Faculty of Law, I have the honor to present to you these women and men, each of whom has completed a degree in legal studies towards the end of advancing justice and promoting the rule of law. By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Doctor of Law, Master of Laws, or Doctor of Juridical Science, and declare that you are ready to aid in the shaping and the application of those wise restraints that make us free. Congratulations.
You can see they have gavels in their hands.
And there's 790 of them.
Candidates for the degrees of Master in Business Administration and Doctor of Business Administration will rise.
This is very
The
good.
Dean of the Faculty of Business Administration.
This is the first year of Nitin Noria's tenure as Dean.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean of the Faculty of Business Administration, I have the honor to present to you these women and men who have developed their leadership and their understanding of the art of general management through the study of business administration.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Master in Business Administration or Doctor of Business Administration, and testify that you are ready to lead people and organizations in enterprises that will serve society. Congratulations.
945 very vocal graduates.
Very vocal, and the new dean, Nitin Noria,
Candidates
is an
for the
extraordinary
several
leader.
degrees in architecture, landscape architecture, urban planning, and design will rise. The Dean of the Faculty of Design.
This is Dean Mohsin Mostafavi of the School of Design.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, and members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean of the Faculty of Design, I have the honor to present to you these men and women, each of whom has qualified for a master's degree in architecture, landscape architecture, urban design, urban planning, or design studies, or for the degree of Doctor of Design.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on each of you the degree for which you have qualified and declare your competence to lead in shaping the spaces in which we live. Congratulations.
They're seated quite a ways away from us, so I can't tell if they have anything in their hands or not.
Candidates for the degrees of Master and Doctor of Education will rise.
Now, we're told that they are waiving children's books in a commitment to
the Dean
donating
of the Faculty
and
of
providing children's
Education
books for people who don't have them. This is Dean McCartney.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, and members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean of the Faculty of Education, I have the honor to present to you these women and men who will be leaders in education practice, policy, and research.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on each of you the master's or doctor's degree in education and declare that you are well prepared to guide and serve the learning needs of contemporary society. Congratulations.
700 graduates here in an area receiving huge scrutiny.
Candidates for the several degrees in public health will rise. The Dean of the Faculty of Public Health.
This is Julio Frank, who is the head of public health.
Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President and members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean of the Faculty of Public Health, I have the honor to present to you these women and men, each of whom has qualified for a master's degree or a doctor's degree to provide leadership, advance knowledge, and improve the public's health.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degrees in public health for which your studies have qualified you, and declare that you are well prepared to generate and utilize knowledge to improve health throughout the world. Congratulations.
Professor Julio Frank came to us from Mexico and is a very strong
Candidates for the degrees of Master in Public Administration, Master in Public Administration and International Development, Master in Public Policy, Master in Public Policy on Urban Planning, and Doctor in Public Administration will rise. The Dean of the Faculty of Government,
Dean David Elwood.
tremendous leader on campus.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, and members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean of the Faculty of Government, I have the great honor to present to you these women and men, each of whom has qualified to provide leadership in public service.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree for which your studies have qualified you, and testify that you are well prepared to offer leadership in the quest for enlightened public policy and effective public service throughout the world. Congratulations.
Kennedy School, oddly, it's the youngest of the graduate schools here, dating back to the period of Derek Bach's tenure.
candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Arts or of Science will rise. Their chosen representatives, together with candidates for those degrees summa cum laude, will draw near.
Chosen representatives are the marshals of the class, and the summa cum laudes are seated with them toward the front.
The Dean of Harvard College.
Evelyn Hammonds, very popular dean, a historian of science.
So 1,600 came in as freshmen.
President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, and members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean of Harvard College, I have the honor to present to you these women and men, each of whom has fulfilled the faculty's requirements for the first degree in arts or in science. Each candidate stands ready to advance knowledge, to promote understanding, and to serve society.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the first degree in arts or in science and admit you to the fellowship of educated men and women. Congratulations.
Now, this is a group that the president and the dean will congratulate personally. You see Drew Faust in that Unitarian robe coming down to congratulate the seniors in person on their achievements. This group of summa cum laude, there are 79 of them who have been elected to receive their degree summa cum laude. That means they not only have to have been recommended for a summa by their department, but their grade point average needs to be extremely high. And that summa cutoff faculty meeting took place just this last Monday. Those who did not quite make it will receive a degree magna cum laude with highest honors. And the highest honors is what is given by their field.
So 1,600 came in as freshmen, 1,556 finished today.
And 3 members of the class
Before
died
we
during
continue,
this time.
let me take this opportunity to recognize the man standing at the microphone. Stephen Hyman will step down this June after a decade of extraordinarily distinguished and devoted service as the provost of the university. All of us who care about Harvard owe him our gratitude. Please join me in applauding and thanking Provost Hyman.
Well-deserved applause that you see faculty, deans, especially who deal with the provost on a regular basis.
He's returning to teaching and research in the life sciences.
By virtue of authority delegated to me by the 2 governing boards, I now confer the following honorary degrees. The provost, if he's able to speak, will introduce the candidates.
Now back to regular business. But thank you. In the world of computer science, our first guest is familiarly known as TBL. He is known for originating the URI and the URL, as well as HTTP and HTML. And if this sounds like a bit of alphabet soup, you might recognize him better as the inventor of the WWW, the World Wide Web. Few phenomena in our time have done more to transform the lives of people around the world. Growing up in London, he made make-believe computers out of cardboard boxes. By his Oxford days, he was making real computers with a soldering iron, a primitive processor, and an old TV set. While at CERN, the European Particle Physics Laboratory, he began working out the ideas that would forever alter the future of global information sharing. And in 1989 and 90, he brought forth the ideas and tools that gave us the World Wide Web. Before then, the internet has been the province of the few. He changed all that. Not only did he create a revolutionary resource, he made his ideas available to the world free of charge, consistent with his dedication to the openness of information. Ever since, he has been at the forefront of the web's development. As a founding director of the World Wide Web Consortium, the World Wide Web Foundation, and the Web Science Trust. And since 1999, he has served as 3Com Founders Professor at a local technical institution just down the river, perhaps best known for its proximities to the original Toscanini's ice cream. We honor Sir Timothy Berners-Lee.
An extraordinary thing for graduates to see a man who represents so much of what they know.
Wait
so
for the
young.
citation.
So young.
There's more. Ingenious guru of a global village to whom the W owes its ubiquity. He has woven from strands of complex code a web that encircles and enlivens our world. Timothy John Berners-Lee, Doctor of Science.
Wonderful. He is escorted, you might have seen behind him, by Harry Lewis, one of our great professors who has followed along this path from the beginning as well.
Our next guest served for 15 years as a member of the Harvard Corporation, one of the university's 2 governing boards. For the last 8 of those years until June 2010, he dedicated himself to serving as the corporation's senior fellow. And in 2006-2007, he chaired the search for a new Harvard president. In real life, he won broad acclaim for his longtime leadership of Corning Incorporated, one of the world's leading makers of specialty glass and ceramics. He has also served for 13 years as chairman of the board of New York's Metropolitan Museum of Art. Few Harvard alumni in recent years have invested more time, thought, and care in the governance of this university. A graduate of both Harvard College and Harvard Business School, as a member of the corporation, he showed a constant concern for improving the educational experience of students. He strongly supported efforts to open Harvard's doors ever wider to women and men of unusual promise, to draw the university's parts into more fruitful interplay, and to encourage innovation from the sciences to the arts. And he has always reminded us that it is the remarkable community of people attracted to this place, the faculty, the students, the staff, the alumni, and friends from every part of the world that define Harvard's character and strength. For his extraordinary service and continuing devotion to the university he loves, we honor Jamie Houghton.
A fine fellow, fiercely committed to his university's care. He has helped guide its passage through change and through storm, with deep devotion to possibilities made real, and with Harvard's agenda ever his own. James Richardson Houghton, Doctor of Laws.
Throwing a kiss to the president, and he, Jamie Houghton, escorted by the man seated behind him, whom you'll recognize, Henry Wasowski.
How do we understand modern and contemporary art? Our next guest is an art historian, critic, curator, editor, and professor whose perspective and ideas have shaped that understanding for generations of colleagues and students and all of us who care about art. She has been unafraid to challenge prevailing orthodoxy. She writes in prose that is vigorous and vivid, that enables us to see things differently and to think in unaccustomed ways. She has articulated concepts that have changed the direction and discourse of contemporary art criticism. Concepts such as indexicality, formlessness, the optical unconscious, the pastiche, and the post-medium condition. The objects of her attention range from Picasso to Pollock, from surrealism to minimalism, from painting to sculpture, to photography to video to performance art. She opens our eyes to the structures of form and meaning that range across different artistic practices. And she does so with a boldness and imagination, with an interweaving of history and theory that have made her one of the most influential art scholars of our time. A PhD graduate of Harvard, co-founder of the pioneering journal October, curator of numerous major exhibitions, she holds a distinguished university professorship at Columbia. We honor Rosalind Krauss.
Deflating dogma with keen perspicacity, wrestling new mediums to the mat of specificity, a trenchant theorist of the modern and postmodern who has recast the lens through which we see art. Rosalind E. Krauss, Doctor of Arts.
Smoking, sexual behavior, suicide, racial disparities in health, mental illness, youth violence, AIDS. These are just some of the consequential and controversial issues on which our next guest has resolutely focused his own and the public's attention during a career of exemplary leadership in medicine and public health. He is best known for his distinguished tenure as Surgeon General of the United States and Assistant Secretary for Health. Before that, he led the nation's Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Beyond his public service, he has played vital roles in the academic world as president of Meharry Medical College, as interim president of Morehouse School of Medicine, and is the driving force behind Morehouse Centers focused on leadership, on primary care, and on disparities in health. Presenting him with our School of Public Health's Julius Richmond Award in 2009, Dean Julio Frank said of our guest, he has dedicated his life to the well-being and dignity of all members of our global community, including particularly vulnerable groups whose health needs had been treated with silence. He inspires us all to boldly communicate against discomfort, stigma, or attempts at censorship, all the information that is needed to improve the public's health. Benjamin Mays, the esteemed late president of Morehouse, once said, "It is not what you keep, but what you give that makes you happy." By that measure, our honored guest must be an extraordinarily happy man. We welcome Dr. David Satcher.
He is escorted by Professor David Williams behind him from the School of Public Health.
To make the greatest difference for those with greatest need. He confronts controversial health concerns with candor and compassion. The public good, his primary care. David Satcher, Doctor of Science.
It says something about our next guest that at a celebration of his extraordinary career nearly a decade ago, he was serenaded by a happy band of amateur musicians, all playing the kazoo. The three-day symposium was officially called New Frontiers in Chemical Physics, but almost as though it were a rock festival, it became known as Dudfest 2002. For decades on Harvard's faculty, he was indeed chemistry's equivalent of a rock star. And not just because he was honored with a Nobel Prize in 1986. His work on fundamental chemical processes, particularly on reactions in single collisions between pairs of molecules, opened broad new avenues for research in labs around the world. But beyond his impact on modern chemistry and physics, he has left a deep imprint on Harvard and on countless faculty, students, and staff. He long taught freshman chemistry, not plain old Chem 10, but rather, as it became known, Chem Zen. His aim, as he put it, was to teach science as a liberal art. It may well have been the only course at Harvard, or anywhere else, where students were asked to write poems about wave-particle duality. Always emphasizing the interplay of the scientific and the humanistic, he has been a champion of improving the public understanding of science and of enhancing science education for students, not just in college, but in their K-12 years. An engaged citizen of the university, he served in the 1980s along with his wife, Georgine, as master of Courier House. He is no stranger to this ceremony, having for years provided color commentary on these festival rites for those watching on TV. And it was he who, in 2003, presented a Nobel Prize to the mad scientist, Dr. Frink, in a Halloween episode of The Simpsons. We honor Harvard's own literate laureate, Dudley Hirschbach.
What a wonderful, wonderful citation, the literate laureate.
And of course, he's a great friend of both of ours.
He
was sitting
is.
in this seat for more than 10 years with you.
Yes, he was.
Imaginative master of molecular dynamics, whose zeal for discovery feeds his zest for teaching. A scientist and a humanist straddling two cultures, he animates the interplay of abacus and rose. Dudley Robert Hirschbach, Doctor of Science.
Wonderful honor. And right behind him is his wife, Georgine Hirschbach, who has also been a very important citizen of the university, administrator.
Dean, physician,
yes.
Huge contributor, both of them.
Of all the scholars who currently study the history of Western political thought, it has been said of our next guest, no one is more fertile, eloquent, and ingenious. As another historian put it, the range, altitude, and stylistic sophistication of his writing seem almost otherworldly. He has woven a spell over the history of early modern British political thought and endowed it with an allure which has captivated generations of scholars. Colleagues have celebrated his wide erudition, his magisterial prose, his insatiable curiosity about the mental world of Anglo-Saxon politics. One has aptly called him the Gandalf of the historical profession. He has been a leader in conceiving of the history of political theory as a history of political discourse, exploring the meaning of texts in the context of the language of their times. Born in London, raised in New Zealand, long a professor at Johns Hopkins University, he is a scholar of vast output and range. His first book, The Ancient Constitution and Feudal Law, has been called epoch-making. His book, The Machiavellian Moment, is a classic study of the Atlantic Republican tradition. Nearly 60 years since he received his PhD from Cambridge, he continues to pursue his passion for scholarship, now at work on the 6th volume of his series, Barbarism and Religion. For his seminal works of history and his shaping influence on the historian's craft, we honor John Pocock.
Extraordinary citation. He is also accompanied here by his spouse, Felicity Pocock, who is behind him.
Sagely expounding civic humanism, subtly unfolding history's history, an erudite scholar of political discourse, expertly illumining how context colors text. John Greville Agard Pocock, Doctor of Laws.
In opera, Debussy improbably said, "There's always too much singing." But when our next guest takes the stage, there can never be enough. He was born in Madrid to parents who performed the zarzuela. He moved to Mexico, studied at the conservatory in Mexico City. 50 years ago this month, he debuted as a lead tenor in La Traviata. In 1968, he first took the stage at the Metropolitan Opera, where he has sung year after year more than 650 times in all. A tenor of sublime expressiveness and power, he has sung more than 130 different operatic roles in more than 3,500 performances, from Mozart to Puccini, from Verdi to Wagner. And he has made more than 100 recordings, most of them full-length operas, over his half-century career. From Seville's World's Fair to Beijing's Olympics, from La Scala to Los Angeles, he has captivated audiences with one of the richest, warmest, most lyrical and memorable voices ever to fill the air. He is renowned not just for his singing, but for his prowess as a dramatic actor. He is admired for programs to support young artists and for benefit concerts to aid the victims of natural disasters. He is also a distinguished conductor and the general director of both the Los Angeles Opera and the Washington National Opera. Recipient of a Legion of Honors worldwide, he is the other one of today's honors guests who has played himself on The Simpsons. Now there's an honor. You will no doubt remember his virtuoso performance in that unforgettable episode, The Homer of Seville. Certain performers need spotlights to let you know when they enter. Beverly Sills once said, and then she said of our guest, there is the performer who brings his own spotlight on stage with him. It shines from within. We welcome Placido Domingo.
Oh, it would be wonderful to hear him sing, wouldn't it?
Oh, yes.
Now, they had Wynton Marsalis play the trumpet. Maybe, you never know.
This is what makes this event so exciting.
Incandescent presence, on stages worldwide, opening hearts to opera's grandeur, a tenor for the ages, whose magnificent mellifluence tingles the spine and stirs the soul. Placido Domingo, Doctor of Music.
His escort behind him, the beloved Tom Kelly, who also teaches very popular courses in music here.
As an advocate, our next guest led the historic effort to advance gender equality through the protections of American constitutional law. As a judge, she has served for nearly 2 decades as a greatly admired member of the nation's highest court. Born in Brooklyn, educated at Cornell and then at Harvard and Columbia Law Schools, she entered the legal profession with sterling academic credentials, but law firms of the day were not ready to open their doors. She instead pursued a career as a professor and public interest lawyer. In the 1970s, as director of the ACLU's Women's Rights Project, she argued a series of 6 cases before the United States Supreme Court, cases that stand as landmarks in the struggle for gender equality in America. In 1980, she was named to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia, where she served with distinction for 13 years. And in 1993, the Senate confirmed her by a vote of 96 to a benighted 3 to become an Associate Justice of the Supreme Court. At the time, President Clinton said he had sought a nominee with the heart and spirit and talent and discipline, the knowledge, common sense, and wisdom to translate the hopes of the American people as presented in the cases before it into an enduring body of constitutional law. For all she has done to embody that ideal, for all she has devoted to the cause of justice and equality, for all she has done to better the lives of women and men, we honor a superlative lawyer and judge who happens also to be a noted aficionada of the opera, the Honorable Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
The law students at our feet here are on their feet, en masse,
Everybody's
as
on their
everyone's on their feet. Incredible achievement.
An advocate extraordinaire who propelled the quest for equal justice under law, a judge supreme who lifts the bench with devotion to the dignity of each individual.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Doctor of Laws, come to hear us at the opera, direct from the Supreme Court.
Oh, we heard it.
Okay, we'll never
will
have it better
hear
than
another,
that.
never have it better than that. And to have her sung, her name sung forth by Placido Domingo. A line from Aida, I believe. She's all smiles.
She has known the adversity of exile. She has suffered arrest and imprisonment at the hands of her opponents. She has faced threats of rape and death. From near and far, she witnessed her homeland convulsed by years of civil war. She not only persevered, she found the will to overcome. Since 2006, she has served as the President of Liberia, having previously chaired the nation's Governance Reform Commission. She has worked to mend and strengthen a social fabric torn by years of dictatorship, violence, and corruption. She has worked to foster democratic institutions in a nation without democratic traditions. She has worked to create educational and economic opportunity as well as basic infrastructure in a country long deprived of them. She has worked to restore and enhance her country's place in the community of nations. A former Mason Fellow at our Kennedy School of Government and a past official of the World Bank and of the United Nations, she is the first woman ever elected to serve as the president of an African nation. Let us be proud, she declared at her inauguration, that we can rise above our differences in a renewed determination to foster dialogue instead of violence, promote unity rather than disharmony, and engender hope rather than disillusionment and despair. We welcome back to Harvard a woman of uncommon valor, Her Excellency Ellen Johnson Sirleaf.
Her spirit indomitable, her story inspirational. She strives to heal the wounds of war for a nation long beleaguered, an unblinking beacon of hope. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, Doctor of Laws.
Extraordinary. And her escort on the faculty is Professor Caroline Elkins, Pulitzer Prize winner in history, and this remarkable woman.
In the name of this Society of Scholars, I declare that these persons are entitled to the rights and privileges pertaining to their several degrees, and that their names are to be forever borne on its roll of honorary members.
Degree candidates and their guests and all alumni are warmly invited to attend the afternoon session of Commencement Day exercises under the direction of the Harvard Alumni Association. The Alumni Parade will begin at 1:45 p.m. and the exercises will begin at 2:30 p.m. The commencement speakers will be Her Excellency Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, the President of the Republic of Liberia and the President of Harvard University. The commencement choir director will now lead us in the singing of the commencement hymn. Following the hymn, the acting Pusey minister will pronounce the benediction. The commencement exercises then being ended, the Sheriff of Middlesex County will declare the meeting adjourned. The audience is requested to remain seated until the President and Fellows and their guests have withdrawn from the platform.
Deus omnium creator, the Harvard hymn in Latin.
Life is short, and we do not have much time to gladden the hearts of those who travel with us. So be swift to love and make haste to act with kindness and compassion. And the blessing of Almighty God, Creator, Sustainer, and Redeemer, be with us this day and forevermore. Amen.
The High Sheriff of Middlesex County now declares that the meeting is adjourned.
The bells of Cambridge, 14 different places.
Ringing here in the Memorial Church, at Lowell House, throughout the churches of Cambridge, and throughout the buildings of the university. What a grand scene that we see here. The High Sheriff has done a wonderful job this year, and we see what really is the conclusion of an academic festival with all of the, well, what Durkheim used to call the collective effervescence of a community that has come together in this huge, complex, and wonderful celebration.
And in the years ahead, we're going to look at each other and say, remember when we heard Placido Domingo serenade Ruth Bader Ginsburg?
It was wonderful. And I loved seeing Placido Domingo at the end, the one of them looking at the words and the tune to the Harvard hymn and trying to sing it.
Yeah.
I loved it. I loved it. And now we see the procession of the president retreating from the stage of the university, the top-hatted members of the corporation and the members of the Board of Overseers, and are reminded of the things that Drew Faust has said so often to this graduating class, to finish your own sentences and be who you are. And that, of course, was reiterated by the commencement speakers here, that the greatest courage is not to take risks, but not to take them at all. I mean, not in the risk taking, but in not taking risks.
And also, I think we have to point out that our dear friend Dudley Hirschbach, receiving an honorary degree today, he is of course a very close associate of mine in chemistry, a longtime friend of you, and although he won the Nobel Prize in 1986, it's a small part of what he's contributed to the world.
Of the whole range of what he has done. And just a wonderful spirit, a great sense of humor, and he loved about my work the fact that Hindus thought of there being 330 million gods. This delighted him, this sense of the vast infinity of the presence of the divine. And there he goes, Placido Domingo. How wonderful, in the company of Tom Kelly.
And Georgine Hirschbach, we should also point out, the two of them were a team, starting with co-master of Courier, but Georgine was a profoundly effective dean at many levels that contributed so many ways to innovation and spirit in this university. It's a great achievement. It was Henry Rosowski, David Elwood,
Dean
Michael Smith.
All of the graduates waving to us with their balloons from the Kennedy School.
They should fill them with helium so they are released.
And create havoc in the upper atmosphere.
They'll go up for a while and then burst.
This is absolutely wonderful. We see some of the divinity graduates here as well. Drew Faust said at her inauguration that the essence of a university is that it is uniquely accountable to the past and to the future, not simply to the present, certainly not simply to what she said results in the next quarter, but it's not really about who a student has become by graduation, but about the learning that molds a lifetime and that transmits the heritage of millennia. And this is what we can hope for from these 7,000 graduates leaving this place today. We see the commencement band, the commencement choir, everyone who participates in this great collective effervescence.
And the other thing that, of course, is true is that the rate of change in the world today places correctly huge pressure on the faculty to adjust, think forward in time, reconstruct curricula, interlink science and society, keep all those unions together, vital, flowing, changing, and moving. And it's really come down centrally on Harvard to bear this responsibility.
There is so much that is going on that links all of the schools that are streaming together as they leave the Tercentenary Theatre today. So much, as you rightly say, that links the curriculum and the futures of divinity and science, of art and humanities.
And I have to say, Diana, I can't imagine anybody I would rather do this with. It's so much fun.
It is a lot of fun, and we are delighted to have been here together this morning to remember the fact that if we're good enough, maybe if we do this for many generations, we'll get an honorary degree as well as Dudley did today. Or if we win a Nobel Prize,
or
perhaps.
maybe a $10 million contract.
You never know. Friends, it has been wonderful to be with you today. We hope that you have enjoyed this morning's festivities and that you will tune in this afternoon for the commencement afternoon here in the Tercentenary Theatre.
Yes, and have a wonderful year until we see you next year.
Thank you and goodbye, and thanks to our production team.